Hi, so today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 fantasy books I've ever read and then the top 5 fantasy books I really want to read soon. I got these Sith robes at Disneyland and haven't had really a chance to wear them, and I was like, a fantasy book talking, I'm gonna get dramatic and get my cloak robes out because nothing is more fantasy than a mysterious cloak that someone wears and can shield their whole entire face with. So mysterious. They'll never know who I am. It totally messes up my hair, but my hair is already a mess today. So anyways, should we just get into this? I've tried filming this before and had to scrap it all, so we're like redoing it. I'm wearing the Sith robes now. It's real fun. And we're gonna just first start with the top 5 fantasy books that I really want to read soon, and why I want to read them, I guess. Just gonna talk about books. It's gonna be a fun time. Fantasy is my favorite genre, but I honestly don't read much of it. I don't think. I usually read urban fantasy. I think I'm mostly sticking to high fantasy this time, but there might be some urban thrown in there, especially for my top fantasy series that I've read. But I believe most of these are series, not standalones. I think one of them is a standalone. But did I introduce myself? Hi, I'm Chloe. Man, I'm smothered in this, and it's really hot in my room because it's like winter outside and there's literally snow on the ground, but I am sweating. So the first fantasy book. Yeah? Hi, baby. Did you see that? She's a little monster. The first book that I really want to read is actually The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. I have it on my Kindle. I don't own an actual physical edition of it. She will talk about this. There is some sapphic representation in it. I know it's a very high fantasy book. Ooh. An exiled princess spends her days daydreaming of vengeance while in prison. Ooh, okay, it's high fantasy. It has an exiled princess. I love books with royalty in it. It's like my favorite thing. I have heard so many people rave about this series, the Jasmine Throne series. I've heard it has some good sapphic representation, which is it sapphic? It might just have good LGBTQIA plus representation. There's claws in my lap. Anyways, I've heard that the relationship in this is really good. I've heard the world build. I can't today. I've heard that the world building in this is really good and the magic is really fun, and I've heard that there is good representation for sapphic or like a sapphic relationship in this book, and I would love to read a high fantasy that is focused on a girl-on-girl relationship. I feel like you never see that in high fantasy, and so I would love to read a high fantasy book about it, and especially one that's been raved so much about how it is done. Like, I have heard nothing but good things about this series. You can't even see it. I'm holding up the about. But this is a series. It's the first one in the series, The Jasmine Throne. All I know about it, and I really want to read it. Like, it doesn't take much to get me to want to read a book. If it checks a certain amount of boxes for me, I'm like, yep, I'm gonna read that. So that's number 1 on what I really want to read, and I'm actually hoping to read this before the end of the year. Girl. Girl, you're going down. It's hot in here and you're just making it hotter on my lap. Okay. Whew. You know, the cloak sounded like a really good idea, but it's really hot in here. The next fantasy book I really want to get to is Set Fire to the Gods by Sarah Rush and Kristen Simmons. I'm really bad at names, but I'm sorry. Set Fire to the Gods is like a magical fantasy world, but they're gladiators, and there's a war with gods, and that's all I know about this. It has a really pretty cover. Every time I saw it, I was like, I really need to read that. I know it has a second one out, so I know it's a series. I don't know if there's only 2 in the series. I don't know if it's just a duology or what it is. I feel like this top 5 books I really want to read is gonna go really fast because I don't research much on the book before I read it. I just like to go into books knowing as little as possible. I like to know if there's like a trope I like, I'll probably just pick it up based on the trope. I like to go into it and not know what's happening at all, and if I know a few tropes that's gonna happen or the general concept, then I'm good and I want to read it. And so that's kind of what most of these are. It's like I get the general idea of them, and I've heard really good reviews about all of these, and it just makes me want to read them really bad, and I'm like, I'm gonna pick that up this month. I'm gonna read that next. I'm gonna do that, and then I don't, and I really need to. So this is the next one, Set Fire to the Gods. Really need to read this. The next book I really need to read is Fire Gold by June C.L. Tan, and this is the Fairy Loot edition. It's really pretty. I was gonna pick up this book when I heard about it, and then I got it in a Fairy Loot and I was like, sweet. It came with this art. Look how pretty. In an empire on the brink of war, is no one with no past and no family. Oh yeah. Okay, I remember why I wanted to read this. I'm pretty sure this is an Asian-inspired mythology, no, not mythology, Asian-inspired fantasy that also has some royalty in it, and like just hearing that, it's like, yep, I want to read that now. Like I said earlier, I don't know much about these books because I don't want to know much about them. I just want to go in it and read them and have a good time and not know much going into it, because sometimes I feel like summaries can really let you down. Like you're expecting like this awesome, maybe a certain trope from the summary or this certain feeling that you got from the summary, and then it's just not there. I cannot wait to get to Jade Fire Gold. This is a book that I feel like everybody is talking about, and that These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. All I've heard about this is it gives ACOTAR vibes. That's all I've heard. I have an art print somewhere, and the main two dudes do look a lot like Reese. Where is he? Yep. So I don't know much about this book. I've heard good things about it. I've heard bad things about it. I just want to read it and see where I fit on that scale. I basically heard this is like an ACOTAR retelling. This is very similar to like Sarah J. Maas. The two main guys look a lot like Reese and Rowan to me. So like, I get where people are coming from, because the main guy literally looks like Reese and the other guy literally looks like Rowan from Throne of Glass and A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I'm tempted to see if this feels like that at all, if it gives me the same vibes as ACOTAR does, or if like it's nothing like that and the main guys just look the same. This is a series. I believe the second one is out and the third one is coming out, but don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure. I definitely need to read this one soon and see what all the fuss is about. This next one is one that I am scared to read, but I've been wanting to read it for a long time because it is a very chunky book and I am scared. Okay, but I've heard really great things about The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I believe this is a standalone, but there is a prequel coming out or something like that. I've just seen the cover. It looks really good. This is an adult fantasy, I'm pretty sure. I think this also has some LGBTQIA+ representation in it as well. I honestly know nothing about this book. I know it's a high fantasy. I think there are dragons in it, but I could just be thinking that because of the cover. I've heard really good things about it. I've heard that people just say you gotta read it and don't let the size of this book intimidate you, because she is... Even the hardback, man, I couldn't even justify buying the hardback because I was like, no. I also own this on audiobook and Kindle, so I just need to read it. I have 3 copies of it. I need to read it. Right? Why buy any more copies of it? Because I don't even know if I like it, and I already own 3 copies of this. I need to read it. I've been editing a lot of my videos and just noticing how much I say the words like and really, and I am sorry. On to my top 5 fantasy books. This isn't like my top 5 series I've ever read, but just fantasy in general. I will make a top series someday. it's a lot to think about. I'm just like, I don't know which one's better. I don't know what is what, and you know, it's just easier to kind of stick within a genre and be like, yes, this is my favorite, this is my favorite, and this is my favorite. So that's what I did. We're gonna start with number 5, and that is one I've been talking about a lot recently. Fable by Adrienne Young. I don't know if I said her name right. Her name is so hard for me, and I don't know why. This is Fable. I've talked about it a lot recently. This is a piratey book, even though it's not really about pirates, but they're on a ship, and there is magic, and they are in this world called the Narrows. There is a lot of books in the Narrows. I've read 3 of them. I just found out another one exists that I didn't even know about, and I need to read it ASAP. This is Fable, which focuses on a girl named Fable who is a gem sage, which means she can kind of hear the gems speak into her as she goes on dives for a ship. There is a really, really, really lovely man named West in this book, and I adore West. The prequel just came out called Saint. I recently read it and I loved it as well, but Fable and Namesake and Saint are all so good, and I have a thing for duologies. I really like duologies. I love when an author can like properly wrap up a story in just 2 books. It's just like so impressive to me. and that's kind of what Fable is. Fable and Namesake are really good to me. I like them, but they are number 5, and I recently reread this, so I think that's why this is on this list too, because I recently reread and remembered how much I actually did really love this series. I don't know if I hadn't reread this if it would be on this list. My mind is constantly on this world right now, and so right now it's in my top 5. Number 4, An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is a 4-book series. I love Elias so much. He's the main guy in this, and then I like the main girl too. I also really enjoyed Helen. There was a lot of characters in this book that were just really, really enjoyable to read about. Like, I don't think there wasn't a main character who I didn't like, other than the people you aren't supposed to like, but I love the story. It's just different and it's unique than a lot of other fantasy books that you'll read or slash that I have read, and I really need to read more by Sabaa Tahir. I want to read All My Rage by her, but you know what I think I just realized? I didn't realize he was on this cover. I thought it was just her. I thought that was just her dress for some reason. Oh my god, I thought it was just literally her on this cover. This is a fantastic series with some fantastic characters and fantastic plot. It has everything you need. It has a good plot, it has good characters, it has good pacing. It's really easy just to dive into this world and just read all of it in like such a short sitting. Loved the 4th one. I think the 4th one was like my favorite. I've reread the first one twice. I need to reread it because I'm forgetting some of the plot points in my head, and that means it's time to reread it. But it's such a good fantasy series, and I definitely recommend. 3rd on this list, Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This series isn't actually finished yet, so I can't actually put this on my favorite fantasy books because it's not finished yet. But this was the closest Cassandra Clare book to me. That was the easiest to get, so I just grabbed it. Basically, I'm gonna say The Infernal Devices and The Last Hours are combined for me because you have to read them together because, you know, they go together. So The Infernal Devices and The Last Hours, the first book in Infernal Devices is Clockwork Angel. I love the whole Shadowhunters Chronicles. Honestly, Infernal Devices is my favorite out of all of them, but I think The Last Hours is gonna beat it depending on how Chain of Thorns goes when it's released in January. So excited. I think this might be my new favorite. This isn't high fantasy, it's an urban fantasy, urban historical fantasy, and I love the Shadowhunter Chronicles, and they'll always have a special place in my heart because they were one of the first series that got me into reading. I read Clockwork Angel and I was just obsessed. I think Clockwork Angel was literally the book that got me into reading. Well, Shadowhunter Chronicles will ever be in a place in my heart, and it has to be in my top series somewhere. Maybe not the Mortal Instruments. I'm having a real hard time with the Mortal Instruments. I tried to reread all the Shadowhunter books this year, and I got to City of Ashes. I was reading them chronologically, and I got to City of Ashes, and I just stopped for like 4 months, because City of Ashes is so... I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And I just finally finished it, and I'm on City of Glass, and finally that's going fast again. There's no way I'm going to be able to read like 12 more books before the end of the year, but I at least got to read this and Chain of Iron this year, so I am ready for Chain of Thorns to come out, and I'm so excited. If you haven't read the Shadowhunter Chronicles before, there's a lot of videos on it. There's a lot of people who talk about it because it's a really, really popular series. My suggestion is to start with Clockwork Angel and not City of Bones. Just saying. Go chronologically, because if you finish the Mortal Instruments before you read the Infernal Devices, you will spoil yourself. And the Infernal Devices is just better. City of Bones is hard to get through, and especially if it's your first Shadowhunter book, you're gonna be like, I don't want to read this. So start with Clockwork Angel. The next 2 books probably get switched around a lot for me, but I'm gonna go with second being Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Got the announcement date for season 2 of the TV show. If you don't know, Six of Crows and Shadow and Bone have been adapted into a Netflix TV show, and it's so good. The first season was really good. I really have high hopes for the second season that is coming out. It looks really good. We're getting some previews, we're getting some trailers, we're getting a release date, March 16th. I am so excited. Oh my god. We're gonna be in Ketterdam with the crows. I'm so excited. Six of Crows is part of the Grishaverse, which is a big series. Six of Crows specifically is a duology, with Crooked Kingdom being the second book, and I do think that this is the strongest series within the collection of the Grishaverse novels. Shadow and Bone was rough for me to read because I just hate the main characters, and I love all 6 of the main characters in this book. And actually, this book took me like 4 times to try to read it. Like, I would get halfway through that first chapter and then set it down, and then I'd pick it up again and get halfway through and then put it down. And like, I just didn't care about freaking, what is his name, Joust or Juiced or something? I don't know, whatever his name is, who had 2 problems, his mustache and the moon or something like that. I read that so many times and I was like, why are people loving this? I don't understand what the hype is about, until I got to the real first chapter with Catsparker and Inej and Jesper and Wyland and Nina and Matthias. It's just so good. This cast of characters is that found family trope, but also a little bit like dangerous, and like they don't want to act like their family, but they're family. Like, I love them so much. And there is the heist aspect. It's a high fantasy. There's magic. There is Kaz, who I love, and Inej, who I also love very much. It's a really good duology, and if you haven't read it yet, go read it. What are you doing? Just go read it. Read it, read it, read it. It's so good, and I'm so excited for season 2, because I'm hoping we see more of the Crows and more of Ketterdam, which is where the Crows' main base of operations is, and I'm really just excited to see where the TV show takes it. And hopefully I still love the TV show after this first or second season, because the first season I really enjoyed, but you never know with book to movie adaptations. That's number 2, though honestly it probably switches between 2 and 1 a lot depending on my mood, but honestly it might be closer to 1 right now because of the news of the TV show, and I just really want to reread it right now. But number 1 on my list, if you know me or if you've seen any of my previous videos, probably won't be a surprise, because there is a certain author that I'm obsessed with and I've dedicated multiple of my shelves to, and I own multiple copies of these same 3 books over and over again. This whole shelf is just the same book, different editions, same 3 books, different editions. I have a whole book tour, go watch it if you're interested. Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I love Carrie Maniscalco. I love her writing, I love her characters, I love her world, I love her plot. I adore her as a writer. My top author. And honestly, there are faults within this series. Definitely, I see them. The first book I know can be a little bit boring or hard to read. The 3rd book is the best book. It just came out, Kingdom of the Feared. It was so good. Loved it so much. I'm really connected to this series. This is about a witch and a prince of hell. Enemies to lovers, witchy vibes. It's so good. It's so good. I'm obsessed with this series. This would probably be one of my top series of all times, along with Stalking Jack the Ripper, her other series, which is a historical, not fantasy. It would be on this list if it was a fantasy, but it's not. I just adore this series. I love it so much. It is a story about Amelia and her twin sister Victoria, and their whole world is kind of thrown apart when Victoria is murdered, and Amelia has to try to figure out who killed her sister, and she ends up striking a bargain with the Prince of Hell, which is their own Prince of Hell is based on one of the 7 sins, and she meets up with Wrath, who I adore. And oh my god, Carrie Maniscalco, I swear to god, I see you putting up those sneak peeks on your Instagram, I see them, and I swear to god, if we're getting an Envy book, I'm going to die. I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. But please, there was a sneak peek, it had 7 circles on it, and they were green. I'm getting Envy vibes. Please be Envy. I would love another book within this world. It's just like the 7 circles of hell kind of realm. It's like, the series also gets more, it's definitely more adult than young adult, especially later on. The first one's pretty young adult, but the 2nd and 3rd one are definitely new adult, just to warn you. The first one isn't even bad, it's the 2nd and 3rd one that I would warn you against if you're not looking for that kind of romance book. Don't go for the series, but like also you could just try it. I love the witch kind of vibes, spooky vibes. It's a fabulous series and I love it so much. The publisher reached out to me and sent me an arc of Kingdom of the Wicked because I'm becoming a cheerleader. I mean, I am basically Carrie Maniscalco's cheerleader on Bookstagram. I am constantly posting about Stalking Jack the Ripper, and I guess I was annoying enough for them to offer me an arc of Kingdom of the Wicked. So the day I got that in my mail, I literally sobbed, and I read it within 24 hours, and I was obsessed. And then I was also sad because I had to wait like over a year and a half for the 2nd book to come out, and then I got an arc for the 2nd book, an ebook arc of it. And then when the 3rd book came out, I don't think they gave out any arcs because it was the 3rd book, but like, this series is so good. It's so good. I will forever be Carrie Maniscalco trash, whether it's Forsake Jet the Ripper or Kingdom of the Wicked or whatever her new book is going to be, and I swear to God, it better be an Envy book. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. This is my top 5 fantasy and top 5 fantasy books I really want to read. I hope this was coherent and like you're able to understand most of what I was saying. I think I'm blowing out the mic too much with my audio, so I try to talk quieter, but I don't know if it really worked. If you like these type of videos, the top 5 videos, let me know which top 5 you would like to see next. Either urban fantasy, romance, contemporary, adult, new adult, young adult, just in general my top 5 authors, top 5, you know, whatever. Or if you want my least favorite fantasy, my least favorite authors, my least favorite books I've ever read, like, just let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fabulous day, and here are some cats.